Well, for the last 6 months or so, we have seen these increasingly hostile Chinese aerial maneuvers around Taiwan. They've strayed across the median line in the Taiwan Strait. They've also done these circumnavigation exercises flying around Taiwan with nuclear-capable H-6 bombers, as well as other aircraft. And really right now, this comes as Xi Jinping has said the Chinese military needs to be ready to go to war at, quote, any second. And also, they've mobilized the society now with these amendments to the national defense law that take power away from the civilian authorities and give it to the Communist Party's Central Military Commission. So there are a lot of worrying signals all at once.
And, Ambassador Grenell, I'd like to bring you into the conversation here. Your successor as DNI, Ratcliffe, he put out a letter, which I think was really very damning of U.S. intelligence in terms of our assessment of China's interference in our election, in this election. I'm not talking about 2016 and the recent 2020 election. And in that letter to the public, he says that there was tremendous disagreement within the IC, within the intel community, and that the CIA in particular was arguing with other elements of the intelligence community about the extent of China's interference in our election, and that the CIA disagreed with the Trump administration's tough policies versus China. Now, of course, we don't elect the CIA. We elect the President of the United States. It was Donald Trump. It is now Joe Biden. Your thoughts about that letter from Ratcliffe and what it says about both China's interference here, as well as what it says about the disagreements within and the politicization, unfortunately, of our intelligence community?
Well, first of all, let's be very clear that the intelligence community, career officials, disagree a lot. And that, I think, is extremely healthy when we have a debate. What's unhealthy is when individuals, whether they're current or former officials, start leaking some raw intelligence, partial information, unvetted, untested information, and that's creating these problems on the outside. And that's how people manipulate the intelligence for political gain. And that's what we've seen between the Russia team and the China team for quite some time. I know them pretty well, and I can tell you that the Russia team is very dramatic. They're quick to take information and leak it out. We've got a real problem with the Russia team. The China team, on the other hand, is much more thoughtful and slow and less likely to leak. These are just the facts that everybody knows inside the intelligence community. This is this open secret. We've got to get to the bottom of why so many politicians keep pushing the Beijing line within the intelligence community, which is, look at Russia. Russia is a bigger problem. And we need to be clear that Russia is a problem, but China is a crisis. And we've caught China too many times spying, pushing their agenda on our local politicians, leveraging what they can in terms of trade on our members of Congress, on governors, on local and state politicians. And the Chinese crisis in the United States, whether it's in academia or in politics, is something that we need to focus on.
Gordon, I did want to ask you, in reference to this executive order that overturned an order from President Trump that would allow China access to our power grid. That is alarming, to say the least. Why in the world would that be done?
Yeah, I have no idea, Heather, because President Trump's executive order getting the Chinese out of our grid was an important step forward. And our grid really is unprotected in many ways because electric utilities have been very persuasive in making sure the federal government didn't impose on them requirements to protect from such things as EMP attacks and others. So we do not need Chinese equipment in our grid. And I hope that the Biden administration is not actually going to let a Chinese supplier sell to our electric utilities.
Rick, if you were still in government right now as DNI, what would be your advice to President Biden regarding this Chinese incursion over the airspace of Taiwan?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Steve, I wouldn't be working for President Biden.
Of course.
So, can I just make that clear? But to take your point and to talk about what is a issue and what we should be pushing, I think that the reality is that whether or not you're in politics or in academia, the Chinese threat is a very real one that we can't ignore. What President Biden is wanting to do is engage with China. Now, engagement is a great idea. Certainly engaging with the North Koreans, as President Trump did, worked a little bit. And we've still got more work to do there. But I'm all for engagement, but I'm also for evaluating whether or not that engagement has worked. 20 plus years ago, when we invited the Chinese into the WTO, we thought engagement would work, that they would go down the road of greater human rights and rule of law processes. That hasn't worked. And we have been very slow to admit that engagement with China has made China worse.
Right.
I've seen it at the UN, my 8 years there.
Yeah.
And what President Biden wants to do is continuing this engagement without holding them to